Welcome to the deep dive. If you are listening right now, you are probably someone who appreciates getting past the glossy, highly edited surface of things to find out what is actually going on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
You, our listener, are in for an incredibly revealing ride today. We have got our hands on a really fascinating piece of grounding material.
Yeah, it's a brutal read, honestly.
It really is. It's a completely unfiltered 2026 transcript from the travel podcast Phil and H Travel. The specific deep dive they did is titled, Is It Worth It? Top Travel Destinations Explored. And today's target, the legendary Phi Phi Islands in Thailand.
Right, specifically looking at that massive, lingering question we all have.
Did the highly celebrated 2022 environmental recovery of Maya Bay actually make the destination better for travelers?
Or did it just make it vastly more expensive and, incredibly complicated?
Exactly. And the mission for our deep dive today is crucial. We are not here to just hand you a standard run-of-the-mill travel itinerary. No lists of nice beaches or trendy restaurants.
Right, our objective is to completely deconstruct what Phil and H brilliantly call the logistical smokescreens of modern overtourism.
Logistical smokescreens. I love that term.
It's so accurate. We are going to examine the staggering gap between what the global travel industry and those perfectly curated social media algorithms sells you versus the actual on-the-ground reality of Phi Phi in 2026.
So whether you are actively planning a trip to Southeast Asia or you are just endlessly fascinated by the invisible economics of global tourism.
Or maybe you just want the pure vicarious satisfaction of knowing how to avoid a $430 a day vacation disaster.
Yeah, you need to hear this. Okay, let's unpack this because the reality check starts the absolute second you step off the boat.
Literally the very second.
The overarching theme of 2026 Phi Phi, according to this transcript, is the absolute death of the backpacker dream.
It is entirely gone.
I think we all have this romanticized image of Southeast Asia from the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, showing up with a loose itinerary, finding a dirt-cheap beach hut, and living on just a few dollars a day.
Yeah, the classic gap year fantasy.
But that era is over. The island has been aggressively gentrified. It is now completely catering to high-budget flashpackers.
Right. Travelers who might still carry a backpack but have the disposable income of a luxury tourist.
Exactly. While simultaneously absorbing these massive daily speedboat tour groups coming over from the mainland of Phuket.
And what's really fascinating here is the why behind this transformation, how it ties directly into that famous 2022 Maya Bay recovery.
Oh yeah, the global headlines.
You remember them. The bay was completely closed to the public to let the coral reefs breathe, to recover from the severe ecological damage caused by thousands of daily tourist boats dropping anchor.
It was billed globally as this massive, heartwarming triumph of environmentalism.
Right, but Phil and H make a highly compelling argument that this conservation effort effectively acted as a logistical smokescreen for an entirely new economic model.
Meaning they used the ecology to justify a massive price hike.
Exactly. Yes, the coral might actually be breathing again, which is genuinely a wonderful thing for the marine ecosystem. But for the traveler in 2026, the reality is that you are now forced to pay a 400 baht national park premium.
Which is about $11.50.
Right, just to stand shoulder to shoulder with 4,000 other people on a heavily policed wooden boardwalk.
It almost sounds like a theme park.
It basically is. You are paying a premium price for a highly restricted, heavily surveilled version of nature rather than actually experiencing the wildness of the island.
And that restricted, highly monetized feeling hits you before you even see a single grain of sand.
Oh, the arrival.
Let's walk through the first 24 hours on the island. Because the sensory assault of arriving at Tan Sai Pier is legendary.
It is intense.
You step off the ferry, and immediately the smell hits you. It's this thick, heavy, inescapable mix of diesel fuel from hundreds of boat engines, combined with the distinct, slightly rotting smell of low-tide marine life.
And visually, it's just as chaotic. You are instantly swarmed by 50 shouting hotel touts.
All waving these laminated placards right in your face.
It is absolute chaos. And right in the middle of that disorientation, before you can even get your bearings, you hit your first financial trap.
The trash tax.
Yes, the trash tax. It's a 20 baht arrival fee.
No, wait a minute. 20 baht is roughly 60 cents in US dollars. 60 cents sounds like absolutely nothing.
It is nothing financially.
I think most people would gladly pull out $1 and hand it over if it helps keep the island clean, so why do they call it a trap?
The trap lies entirely in the logistics and the underlying hypocrisy of the system.
Okay, how so?
You are forced off the boat and immediately funneled into this highly disorganized, incredibly slow-moving queue. You end up standing in the direct, blistering tropical sun surrounded by hundreds of other sweaty passengers for up to 40 minutes,
Just to pay 60 cents.
just to hand over a couple of coins to a person sitting at a folding table. It is a massive logistical bottleneck that immediately sets a tone of exhaustion and frustration.
That sounds miserable.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the podcasters point out a deeply frustrating reality about where that money actually goes.
Right, the ostensible purpose of the tax.
Exactly. This tax ostensibly funds waste removal and island cleanup. It makes you feel like you are contributing to a green initiative. Yet the brutal, on-the-ground reality is that the island openly burns its excess garbage.
They burn it.
Openly, in the jungle right behind the main tourist viewpoints, every single night.
That is wild. They are collecting an environmental fee at the door and then just setting the trash on fire in the woods.
Precisely. Because it is an island with severe spatial constraints and no massive mainland landfill, getting rid of garbage requires loading it back onto barges.
Which is expensive.
Very expensive. So they burn the excess. And this isn't a secret operation. This sends incredibly acrid, toxic smoke drifting directly over the budget hotel zones in the center of the island.
Wow.
So you pay an eco-tax for waste management, stand in the boiling sun to do it, and then breathe in burning plastic while you are trying to sleep in your room.
That is the perfect definition of a logistical smokescreen.
It really is.
And the friction only escalates the moment you finally get past that queue.
Say hello to the luggage cart mafia.
Ah, yes, the mafia.
This is something you simply do not think about until you are there. Because there are no cars on Phi Phi, there are no taxis to take you to your hotel. You have to walk.
But wheeled suitcases, those standard hard shell rollers everyone travels with now, do not work in deep beach sand.
Or on the broken, uneven, narrow paving stones of the central village. The wheels just sink and jam. This creates an immediate microeconomy based entirely on extortion.
Exactly. You are essentially forced into paying 300 Thai baht, about $8.50, to a local worker with a metal pushcart, just to move your suitcase 800 meters down the path.
And you are sweating, you are exhausted from the ferry, and you just want to get to your room, so you pay it.
To put that 300 baht fee into perspective regarding the local economy, that is the cost of a massive, multi-course local lunch in other parts of mainland Thailand.
You are paying it just for the privilege of moving your clothes a few hundred yards. It is a staggering markup based purely on geographic necessity.
And Phil and H map out the psychological arc of this first day so perfectly. Picture this. You are the traveler. Hour 1, you are on the top deck of the ferry pulling into the island.
You see those iconic, towering limestone cliffs rising dramatically out of the emerald water.
You are in a state of pure euphoria. It is gorgeous. It looks exactly like the movies. But fast forward to hour 4.
The honeymoon phase ends very quickly.
It really does. You are sweating through your clothes, you have dealt with the luggage mafia, you are navigating the sand, and you are experiencing extreme logistical friction.
And then we hit hour 10.
The financial shock.
You have settled in, you shower, and you go out to sit down for dinner. You are expecting those famously cheap Southeast Asian prices.
Right. You order a basic standard plate of local squid at a restaurant, the bill comes, and it is 800 baht.
23 US dollars for a small plate of squid.
That is the exact moment the illusion shatters. It is like walking into a massive sports stadium. You know the hot dog is going to cost $15 because you are a captive audience with nowhere else to go.
That 800 baht squid is a highly critical data point in this analysis. It represents the realization that you are utterly captive to an island economy that has to import absolutely everything.
Every grain of rice, every bottle of beer.
Every piece of building material. They bring it in by boat, and they pass that logistical tax directly onto the tourist at an astronomical markup.
But the psychological arc doesn't end with that expensive dinner. Because at hour 20, say, 6 a.m. the following morning, you wake up early.
You hike up the steep stairs to viewpoint 1 while the rest of the island is asleep.
And it is totally empty. You look down at the twin bays shining in the soft morning light before the thousands of day trippers arrive. And suddenly, recalibration sets in.
You think, okay, maybe this is why I came here. It really is beautiful.
It is a massive emotional roller coaster in the first 24 hours.
It really is a test of endurance. Now, the transcript does mention an alternative to that brutal, chaotic arrival at Tan Sai Pier.
Oh, right, the speedboat.
If you have the budget for it, you can take a direct speedboat from Phuket straight to Lam Tong Beach, which is located on the extreme northern tip of the island.
And how much does that cost?
It costs 1,500 baht, roughly $43, and the journey takes exactly 1 hour.
Okay, wait. $43 to completely skip the diesel smell, skip the aggressive touts, and skip the luggage mafia. That actually doesn't sound terrible. Is there a catch?
There is a massive catch.
Why wouldn't everyone just do that?
Because it structurally traps you. Yes, you completely bypass the madness of the main village and the trash tax queue, but once that speedboat drops you off on the northern beach and drives away, you are physically marooned at a luxury resort.
Ah, because there are no roads.
As we noted, there are no roads on this island. If you decide on your second night that you want to go to the main town for cheap street food, or maybe you want to experience the local nightlife and fire shows, you cannot simply walk or take a cab.
You have to hire a private long-tail boat to take you down the coast.
And let me guess, the boat operators know you are stuck.
Absolutely. The local boat mafia, as they are informally known, will charge you 1,000 baht, or $28, each way for that privilege.
So a simple dinner run to town suddenly has a $56 transport fee attached to it.
You solve the arrival friction, but you completely surrender your mobility. You become entirely captive to the resort's highly inflated dining and activity prices because leaving is simply too expensive and inconvenient.
That idea of being a captive audience actually dictates the entire geography of the island. Where you choose to sleep on Phi Phi completely dictates your reality and your daily budget.
It is rigidly zoned, almost like different cities. Let's look at Zone 1.
The high-density party zone?
Yes. This encompasses the central isthmus between Tan Sai and Lo De Lum Bays. The vibe here is chaotic, it is heavily intoxicated, and it is squarely aimed at the 18 to 25-year-old demographic.
And the pricing here is incredibly inflated for the absolute bare minimum of comfort. A bed in a damp shared dorm room costs 800 baht, or $23.
To put that into a broader Thai context, in the northern city of Chiang Mai, that exact same $23 easily buys you a private, beautifully decorated, air-conditioned boutique hotel room.
On Phi Phi, it gets you a top bunk in a room that smells like wet towels.
Mid-range accommodation in the zone is about 3,500 baht, and high-end is roughly 6,000 baht.
And the most vital piece of intel about Zone 1 is what Phil and H called the noise curfew myth.
Oh, this is so important for anyone booking a room online.
When you go online and book a room on Lo De Lum Bay, the hotel listing will almost certainly promise you that local ordinances strictly require the beach clubs to cut their music at 1 a.m.
Which, if you're on vacation, seems like a pretty reasonable expectation for getting some sleep.
It is a completely false expectation, sadly.
The reality in 2026 is that local enforcement of these noise ordinances is absolutely non-existent.
The massive beach clubs blast incredibly heavy electronic bass music until 4 a.m. every single night without fail.
And we're not just talking about loud background noise that you can sleep through.
No, the transcript specifies that bringing earplugs from home is entirely useless.
Because the low-frequency sound waves are so powerful, they physically shake the concrete walls of the hotels.
The acoustic energy transfers right into the building. Your mattress will literally vibrate until dawn.
That sounds like a literal nightmare if you have an early morning boat tour planned. But there's a fantastic, highly specific hack in the transcript for this exact problem.
Oh, the interior room trick.
Yes. Let's say you absolutely must stay in this central zone. Maybe you want to be close to the ferry pier, or you want easy access to the cheap inland food stalls. You should request an interior-facing room at the Chaco Phi Phi Hotel.
Do not get a room facing the beach, no matter how nice the view looks online.
Exactly. The interior rooms are shielded by the immense concrete mass of the building itself, which acts as a heavy acoustic barrier and blocks roughly 80% of that structural vibrating bass. It is a literal sanity saver.
That is a phenomenal tip for managing the physical environment. Now, moving outward from the chaos, we have Zone 2.
Mid-range compromise.
This area is known as Long Beach. It caters to a slightly older crowd, usually couples in their 30s, and people looking to actually relax with a book rather than drink from plastic buckets until dawn.
The cost here ranges from 1,500 baht for very sparse, basic dorms, up to 8,000 baht for luxury spots.
But the baseline average is around 4,500 baht, roughly $130 a night. For that price, you get a decent wooden bungalow, but with notoriously bad Wi-Fi.
And again, just to hammer home the economic reality, 4,500 baht in Bangkok gets you a room in a literal 5-star, high-rise luxury hotel with a rooftop infinity pool.
So, what exactly are you paying for on Long Beach?
You are weighing a significant, calculated trade-off.
On one hand, by staying on Long Beach, you are committing to a 40-minute, intensely sweaty hike through a jungle path every single time you want to walk into the main town for a cheap meal or to go to the pharmacy.
Or you have to pay for a water taxi to shuttle you back and forth.
But on the other hand, Long Beach possesses a massive, unique, and highly valuable benefit. It has the island's only accessible free house reef right off the sand.
You do not have to charter an expensive longtail boat to go snorkeling.
You literally just walk out of your expensive, spotty Wi-Fi wooden bungalow, step into the ocean, and the living reef is right there. You are paying a premium for immediate, frictionless access to nature.
I can see how that would be incredibly appealing for someone who just wants to swim and look at fish all day without dealing with boat captains.
Definitely. And then we reach Zone 3, which operates in a completely different universe.
The isolated luxury enclave up north at Lamtong.
We touched on this earlier regarding the direct speedboat arrivals. This is where the mid-range pricing starts at 6,000 baht.
And the true luxury properties, places like the famous Zavola Resort, run anywhere from 12,000 to 25,000 baht a night.
That is up to 715 US dollars for one night.
To put that into a deeply sobering local perspective, that top-end nightly rate is an entire month's rent for an average Thai worker on the island.
This raises an important question about what kind of experience you're actually trying to buy when you travel.
Podcasters make a brilliant observation about Lamtong. Because it is so geographically isolated from the rest of the island, it operates completely outside the aggressive corporate beach club monopoly that dominates the central village.
It actually manages to retain a high level of traditional Thai hospitality and operates with a quiet, almost village-like economy. It is pristine, quiet, and deeply relaxing.
But as we established with the speedboat trap, you are a completely captive audience.
You will be eating all your meals at the resort's restaurants, paying their highly inflated prices for every single plate of food and every cocktail, because leaving is a massive logistical hurdle.
The sensory mapping that Phil and H provide for these three zones is so evocative. It is like you can map the entire island purely by smell and sound.
Oh, the descriptions are incredible.
In the central Tun Sai village, the narrow alleys permanently smell like a dense, conflicting mix of frying garlic and chilies from the wok stalls.
Intermingled with the smell of raw sewage venting up from the street grates.
The pier itself just constantly smells like hot engine oil and exhaust.
But then you take a boat up to the northern beaches like Lamtong, and the air smells exclusively of sweet coconut oil and fresh sea salt.
It is like traveling between completely different planets that just happen to share the same zip code.
And that physical environmental reality shifts violently depending on exactly when you choose to visit.
This brings us to a massive factor that most travelers overlook: the weather, the tides, and the timing traps.
These are absolutely critical to understand if you want to avoid a miserable trip.
The first major trap is what they call the high season infrastructure collapse.
From December through February, the weather is perfect, which means the island operates at 100% capacity and hotel prices surge up to 300% above their baseline rates.
300%, that is incredible. I imagine the island must just be bursting at the seams.
It is, and the infrastructure simply cannot handle that volume of human beings. What is fascinating here is the specific, hidden logistical failure the transcript highlights.
It is not just about the beaches being crowded.
No, it is about the fundamental utilities, specifically the island's desalination plants.
Right, because they're surrounded by ocean, they have to remove the salt from seawater to create fresh water for the hotels.
Exactly. Desalination is an incredibly energy-intensive process involving forcing seawater through microscopic membranes at high pressure.
And during peak season, these plants completely fail to process enough fresh water to meet the massive spike in demand.
The result is a highly predictable daily crisis. If you are staying in a standard mid-range hotel in the central village, your shower will simply run completely dry between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. every evening.
The water pressure just drops to zero.
Completely zero.
Which is the exact moment everyone is coming back from the beach, covered in a sticky layer of salt, sand, and sunscreen, desperately wanting to shower before heading out to dinner.
That sounds absolutely infuriating.
You are paying peak season prices, and you can't even wash your hair.
Precisely. It is a massive failure of municipal infrastructure. And the only places immune to this daily drought are the ultra-luxury resorts on Long Beach and Lamtong.
Why are they immune?
because they possess the immense capital required to build and maintain their own massive private underground water reservoirs. They essentially buy their way out of the public infrastructure failure, insulating their wealthy guests from the reality of the island's limits.
Okay, so high season is a logistical and financial nightmare. But what about the off season?
The transcript talks about the secret season versus the weather trap.
The secret season is late November and the first 2 weeks of May. If you go during those highly specific windows, you save 40% on your accommodation.
The island is only operating at about 60% capacity, so there is room to breathe. The sunlight is still sharp and clear.
And this is my favorite little detail. You can actually walk up to a premium beachfront restaurant at sunset and get a front row table without having to discreetly bribe the host to seat you.
That sounds like the absolute perfect time to go.
It is undoubtedly the optimal window, but you have to be incredibly careful with your calendar so you do not fall into the weather trap.
Which is September and October.
Right. The monsoon season in the Andaman Sea is not like a brief, heavy afternoon rain shower that you might experience in mainland cities like Bangkok.
The historical weather data shows 300 to 400 millimeters of rain in these specific months.
That is an unbelievable amount of water. And it brings ocean swells, right? The transcript mentioned 3-meter-high swells.
Yes, and those 3-meter swells mean it becomes physically too dangerous for the passenger ferries to operate. The maritime route from the mainland gets shut down entirely by the Coast Guard.
So if you were there, you aren't just enduring bad weather. You are physically trapped on the island.
And because the commercial supply boats also cannot dock in those swells, the fresh food runs out very quickly.
The podcasters paint a very grim, claustrophobic picture of budget tourists sitting in humid, mold-smelling guest houses, eating instant noodles from 7-Eleven for 3 days straight because the island is effectively under maritime siege.
It goes from a tropical paradise to a survival situation very fast.
Wow. Okay, so timing your month is clearly a life or death decision for your vacation, but timing your day is just as important.
Which leads us to a massive point of discussion, the Maya Bay early bird illusion.
Everyone on the internet, every travel blog, every Instagram influencer said the exact same thing about Maya Bay. Beat the crowds, go early.
So you take that advice. You pay a heavy premium of $3,000 about $85 to charter a private longtail boat.
You drag yourself out of bed at 6:30 a.m. in the pitch dark. You get out to Maya Bay, and what actually happens?
You hit a massive diesel-choked traffic jam of 50 other boats doing the exact same thing.
Exactly. Everyone has the same secret idea. You pay your 400 baht National Park entry fee, and you are immediately funneled onto this rigid wooden boardwalk in the semi-darkness.
You are fighting with hundreds of other exhausted, sleep-deprived people trying to get a selfie without someone's elbow in the frame.
While park rangers constantly blow whistles at you to stay on the path.
It shatters the illusion of paradise immediately. You realize you are just a cog in a highly organized, very expensive cattle drive.
The idea that you are an intrepid explorer discovering a pristine beach evaporates the second you hear the whistles.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The transcript reveals a brilliant, counterintuitive hack for Maya Bay.
It is the 3.15 p.m. rule.
They advise you to ignore the morning entirely. Sleep in. Tell your private boat driver you want to arrive at the Maya Bay Ranger Station at exactly 3.15 p.m.
Why that specific time?
Because the massive multi-level group tour boats that come over from Phuket physically must leave the national park boundaries by 3 p.m.
So they can make the long journey back to the mainland before dark.
It is a strict maritime safety rule. So if you walk onto that boardwalk at 3.15, the golden hour lighting is just starting to soften. The chaotic, frantic energy of the massive crowds has completely evaporated, and you will find yourself sharing the entire famous beach with fewer than 30 people.
It is a phenomenal piece of logistical arbitrage. You are analyzing the operational constraints of the mass tourism industry, their rigid schedules and safety rules, and using them to your own advantage.
It is incredibly smart travel. Now, moving from the boat tours back to the physical reality of the hotels, we have to talk about another major environmental factor.
The low-delume, low-tide reality.
This is a deeply painful one for people who don't do their research. Imagine a traveler saves up and books a 4,000 baht, $114 a night room right on the sand at Low Delume Bay.
They are picturing themselves stepping out of their sliding glass door and diving straight into the turquoise ocean all afternoon.
I mean, that is the dream they are selling in the brochures.
Right. But what the brochures do not show is that the Andaman Sea experiences extreme tidal shifts based on the lunar cycle.
Between noon and 5 p.m., which is the hottest part of the day when you most want to swim, the tide pulls out an incredible 500 meters.
The ocean completely vanishes into the distance.
What is left behind, right in front of your expensive hotel room, is a vast, foul-smelling, muddy lunar landscape.
It is full of sharp, dead coral fragments, sea urchins, and unfortunately trapped plastic garbage baking in the afternoon sun.
The beautiful water you paid a massive financial premium to swim in is just gone.
I can't imagine how disappointing that would be. You walk out in your swimsuit and you're just staring at a mudflat.
But the fix for this is so simple but so incredibly crucial. Phil and H urge everyone to download a basic tide charts app on their phone before they book anything.
If you are going to spend the money on a beachfront room on Low Dulham, you have to check the lunar cycle for your specific travel dates.
Only pay that premium price if high tide aligns with daylight hours. Otherwise, book your room over on Long Beach.
Because the underwater geography is different there. The ocean floor drops off sharply enough that the water stays deep and swimmable no matter what the tide is doing.
Though, to be fair, the transcript does note a small silver lining to the Low Dallum situation.
Oh, right. When the tide does pull out that far, it creates all these fascinating little tide pools around the base of the towering limestone karsts.
You can legally walk out there and explore the marine life in the pools for free, which is actually a pretty unique experience if you appreciate ecology.
It's entirely a matter of managing expectations versus reality. And nowhere is that clash of expectations more painfully evident than in the island's food economy.
If we look at the culinary landscape, the transcript breaks down what is essentially an aggressive two-tier economic system on the island.
There is a massive, highly visible financial divide based purely on physical geography.
It is extreme. Let's look at the numbers because they tell the whole story.
You have the inland street food circuit. This is where the local Thai workers, the long-term expats, and the deep-budget backpackers eat.
If you walk away from the beaches into the narrow alleys behind the main market near the local primary school, you can buy a plate of fresh, incredibly flavorful pad thai from a metal cart for 80 baht.
That is about $2.30. Now, that is still double what you would pay for street food in Bangkok because the island logistics tax applies to absolutely everything, even the noodles, but is highly affordable.
However, if you walk just 300 meters away to a beautifully lit beachfront restaurant sitting on the sand and order the exact same dish, it will cost you 250 baht.
Over $7.
And this is where we have to deeply understand the underlying economics of the island. When you pay 250 baht for a plate of pad thai or 500 baht for a basic green curry at a beachfront spot, you are absolutely not paying for higher quality ingredients.
Or better spices, or superior culinary skill. In fact, Phil and H argue the food at these expensive places is frequently worse because it is mass-produced for tourist palates.
What you're actually buying is oceanfront commercial real estate. You are simply renting a wooden chair with a nice view for an hour.
For example, they mention a specific spot called the Oasis Bar and Restaurant. You pay a very heavy premium for a drink there, but that premium buys you exceptional elevation, a quiet view over the dense jungle canopy, and a carefully curated atmosphere.
You are buying ambiance and exclusivity, not calories.
Conversely, those cheap inland street stalls, they maintain incredibly strict hygiene standards, far stricter than some of the busy tourist restaurants.
Why? Because they do not have a constant, endless flow of one-off tourists who will never return?
They rely entirely on daily repeat business from local Thai dive masters, hotel staff, and expat residents.
If an inland cart makes a local sick, word spreads instantly and their business collapses overnight. They literally cannot afford to serve bad food.
That makes total sense. The economic incentives for hygiene are completely inverted based on who the customer is. But let's talk about the dark side of the food scene.
The seafood weight extortion.
I read this part of the transcript, and I could vividly picture the anger and embarrassment of the situation. So imagine you want a romantic beachfront seafood dinner.
You walk up to a restaurant with a beautiful, elaborate display of fresh fish resting on a bed of crushed ice.
The chalkboard sign clearly says 100 THB per 100 banner. You point to a reasonably sized red snapper that looks perfect for 2 people.
The waiter smiles, nods enthusiastically, and takes it away to the kitchen. You eat, you have a lovely time with the ocean breeze, and then the bill arrives.
And this is exactly where the extortion happens. It relies entirely on asymmetrical information and social pressure.
Exactly. Because suddenly you look at the receipt, and that single average-sized fish is listed as weighing 1.5 kilograms.
Your dinner just spiked by 1,500, bought $43 US for one single fish.
And you are suddenly trapped in a highly hostile, incredibly embarrassing negotiation with the restaurant manager under the romantic string lights, while all the other tables stop eating and stare at you.
It completely ruins the entire night.
It is a classic, highly predatory trap designed to exploit the tourist's desire to avoid public confrontation.
But the protocol to defeat this scam is absolute and non-negotiable. The podcasters are very clear on this.
If you insist on eating at one of these display restaurants, you must force the waiter to place the specific fish on the electronic scale in front of you.
You must physically look at the digital readout yourself. You verbally confirm the total calculated price with them right there.
And then this is the crucial step. You pull out your phone and take a clear photo of the fish sitting on the scale with the weight visible.
If the waiter tries to whisk the fish away to the kitchen before you can do this, you simply stand up and leave immediately.
Zero ambiguity, zero politeness. They know exactly what they're doing.
Alternatively, if you want to avoid this stressful adversarial dynamic entirely, just go to the smaller, enclosed seafood restaurants located further inland near the market.
They sell whole grilled fish for a flat pre-printed menu price of 400 baht. No scales, no hidden math, no games.
It is just so much less stressful to know the price up front. Now, for everyday survival on the island, you aren't eating out for every single snack. The island has a functional supermarket duopoly that dictates daily life.
Macro food service, which is where the restaurants go for bulk buying, and 7-Eleven, which is used for literally everything else.
Deep budget backpackers practically survive on 7-Eleven. A large bottle of water is 60 pek, baht for a 6-pack. A big local beer like Chang or Leo is 65 baht. By buying there, they bypass the heavy bar markups completely.
And the best detail the transcript mentioned, the 7-Elevens on Phi Phi have massive, fully stocked shelves of pure aloe vera gel right inside the refrigeration units.
It is an absolute lifesaver to buy cold aloe when you have a terrible sunburn from a boat tour.
It shows how the corporate retail sector adapts directly to the physical needs of the tourist environment. But navigating the island successfully isn't just about managing your money and your sunburns.
It is deeply about respect. The transcript details several critical cultural rules for 2026 that tourists, often unknowingly, frequently violate.
First, and perhaps most importantly regarding daily behavior, walking inland to the local food stalls or the market wearing a wet bikini or walking around shirtless is a massive cultural faux pas.
Phi has a very large, deeply rooted Muslim population, and the locals find this level of undress away from the beach deeply disrespectful.
They're generally far too polite and reliant on tourism dollars to confront you about it directly, but it causes genuine offense.
You are a guest in their community. The rule is simple. Dress appropriately when you leave the sand.
And there are a couple of other fascinating, highly specific cultural etiquette rules mentioned that I'd never heard of before.
For instance, never step directly on the raised wooden threshold of a traditional restaurant or a shop doorway.
In Thai culture, that physical threshold is considered the home of a protective spirit that guards the building. You must step over it, never on it.
Also, if you are sitting at a table eating a bowl of rice, never leave your chopsticks sticking vertically out of the bowl when you pause.
It visually mimics the incense burned at traditional funerals and is considered a terrible omen and deeply unsettling for the staff.
I also found the detail they included about food delivery culture to be fascinating and very practical.
In Western restaurants, we have a rigid expectation that all the dishes for a table will be served simultaneously so everyone can start eating together.
On Phi Phi, particularly at the authentic local spots, dishes are served the absolute second they are finished cooking.
If your pad thai is done, it comes to the table immediately, even if your friend's green curry is still 10 minutes away from being finished.
Expecting simultaneous delivery will just cause you unnecessary frustration and make you think the service is bad.
But the massive upside to this system is that your food is guaranteed to be served at its absolute peak freshness, piping hot, straight from the wok.
I love that. You just have to adjust your expectations and share everything as it arrives. Okay, I want to move into a really crucial area of this deep dive because we need to talk about health, safety, and those harsh Instagram versus reality moments.
When people think of danger while traveling in Thailand, they often worry about urban threats getting mugged in an alley or having their pockets picked in a crowded market.
But Phil and H completely dispel those crime myths for Phi Phi. The real statistical danger on this island is entirely environmental.
The biggest threats: boat propellers and coral cuts.
Far more tourists end up in the local medical clinic because they got struck by a reversing long-tail boat engine while swimming in a crowded bay, or because they got a severe deepwater staph infection from scraping their leg against a live reef than from any kind of violent crime.
Which is exactly why the single best financial investment you can possibly make before you arrive is a $200 but less than $6 pair of ugly neoprene reef shoes.
They completely neutralize the threat of sharp coral and sea urchins.
And you absolutely want to avoid any kind of injury here because the medical reality of the island is incredibly sobering.
There is no world-class, fully equipped hospital on Phi Phi.
The top-tier private clinic, called WorldPal, will charge you 3,000 baht just to walk in the door, register, and consult a doctor for a basic prescription of antibiotics.
The government hospital is significantly cheaper, but it severely lacks advanced imaging machines or surgical equipment for major trauma.
And if something really bad happens, say you rent a scooter on a nearby island and get a severe head injury, or you suffer a compound fracture from slipping on the viewpoint stairs, you require an emergency speedboat evacuation across the open ocean to a major hospital in Phuket.
That medical transport costs upwards of 35,000 baht, which is $1,000 US.
And terrifyingly, because of the ocean swells and lack of lighting, it cannot safely be done at night.
If you get severely hurt at 8 p.m., you are waiting until sunrise for an evacuation.
It really highlights the severe geographic isolation of the island that you don't feel when you're drinking a cocktail on the beach.
But there is a very practical local hack for minor issues. The pharmacies on Phi Phi are incredibly well stocked, and under Thai law, pharmacists are legally allowed to dispense strong antibiotics, severe burn creams, and painkillers directly over the counter for a fraction of what the private clinic charges for the exact same medication.
That is great to know for minor reef scrapes. Now, for daily health maintenance, absolutely do not drink the tap water.
Not even a little bit. Do not even use it to brush your teeth. Bottled water only, always.
But surprisingly, the transcript notes that the ice in your drinks is generally completely safe. I always assumed you had to avoid ice in Southeast Asia.
But they point out that the ice used in restaurants and bars is delivered daily from massive, highly regulated mainland factories in these big circular tubes.
So if your ice cube has a distinct hole right in the center, it means it is factory-made from purified water and is perfectly safe to consume.
Also, we have to talk about dengue fever.
Yeah.
It is a real endemic threat on the island.
Forget your organic citronella essential oil eco sprays that you brought from home. They do absolutely nothing against Thai mosquitoes.
You have to go straight to 7-Eleven and buy the local chemical-heavy pink bottle OFF spray for 50 baht. It is mandatory for survival.
Let's discuss digital connectivity and personal safety, particularly for solo travelers. From a digital infrastructure perspective, the AIS 5G cellular network pulls fantastic speeds upwards of 100 milliuts down in the dense center of Tonsai village.
But the second you start to hike up to a viewpoint or take a long-tail boat north along the cliffs, the signal evaporates entirely. You are off the grid.
Furthermore, the island's electrical grid is incredibly fragile and constantly overstressed. Rolling brownouts happen frequently, usually right at sunset, when every single tourist returns to their room and turns on their air conditioning simultaneously.
The grid simply buckles. If you are staying in a standard mid-range guest house, you will find yourself sitting and sweating in the dark until the power returns.
Only the high-end luxury resorts, and ironically, the massive, highly profitable beach bars on Lodelam, have the capital to run industrial diesel generator backups.
And speaking of those massive beach bars, that brings us to the specific safety warnings. Phi Phi is a highly social, friendly island, but the transcript explicitly names a few very real risks.
The biggest one is drinks spiking at those massive, chaotic beach parties on Lodelam.
The entire party culture there revolves around drinking cheap, incredibly strong, local alcohol mixed with energy drinks in these literal plastic sand buckets.
Because everyone is sharing buckets and leaving them on the sand while they dance, it makes it terrifyingly easy for someone with bad intentions to slip something into your drink.
You have to be incredibly vigilant and never let your bucket out of your sight.
And for solo female travelers specifically, the podcasters issue a stark geographic warning.
Walking the jungle path between the quieter Long Beach and the central Tonsai village after 10 p.m. is a genuine physical hazard.
It is not just a personal security issue regarding isolation, it is a significant environmental risk.
The path is completely unlit. It has incredibly steep drop-offs down to the rocks, and the concrete stairs are uneven and broken in places.
Attempting that hike after having a few drinks in town is incredibly dangerous.
Okay, now for my absolute favorite part of the transcript. The cinematic illusions versus authentic alternatives. The ultimate Instagram versus reality checks.
Let's look at Scene A, Pile Lagoon.
Every piece of social media marketing promises you this quiet, cinematic glide into impossibly emerald waters, entirely surrounded by towering limestone cliffs.
You imagine yourself alone with nature.
The reality, you show up at 11 a.m., you take 2,500 baht for a private boat, and you find yourself sitting in a deafening, diesel-choked traffic jam of 70 other boats, all aggressively bumping into each other's hulls.
While massive groups of tourists blast competing music from portable Bluetooth speakers, it is a stressful, noisy nightmare.
Contrast that awful experience with Scene B, the authentic alternative they provide.
If you want that pristine experience, skip the famous lagoon entirely. Instead, take a simple 30-minute hike over the hill to Lo Mu Di Beach on the East Coast.
You walk through this quiet, shaded coconut grove, and suddenly it opens up to a sweeping, gorgeous stretch of powdery white sand.
There are 0 massive beach clubs. There are almost no noisy boats anchored in the bay. The water is brilliant, clear turquoise.
And the best part, it costs you absolutely nothing to be there except maybe 60 spackite to buy a cold bottle of water from a local guy sitting with a cooler under a tree.
You get the exact visual aesthetic you came to Thailand for without the logistical nightmare.
It sounds absolutely perfect, and we have to talk about the fire shows.
The National Tourism Boards heavily hype up these legendary massive fire shows on Lo Dalam Beach.
But the transcript paints a very different, very stressful reality. You are standing in a dense, sweating crowd of heavily intoxicated 20-somethings.
You are constantly being shoved from behind, the bass music is ear-splitting, and the performers are often just amateur backpackers or inexperienced locals.
They are spinning these massive ropes, completely soaked in cheap kerosene. And occasionally, due to poor technique, they literally spray raw, burning fuel right onto the front row of the tightly packed audience.
It feels like a massive, terrifying liability just waiting for a tragedy.
The superior, much safer alternative is to seek out Carlito's Bar, which is located right on the main pedestrian path near the pier.
You actually get to sit down at a proper table by the water.
The performers at Carlito's aren't casual, careless backpackers. They are highly technical, veteran fire spinners who have been doing it for years.
You pay a standard, reasonable 100 baht for a local beer. There is no exorbitant entry fee. You can actually feel the cool ocean breeze.
And because the music is at a reasonable volume, you can actually hear the person sitting next to you speak. It is a drastically better, safer, and more enjoyable experience.
And the podcasters share this one ultimate moment that just perfectly encapsulates the magic of the island, despite all the scams, the noise, and the flaws we've discussed.
It is this. Sitting completely alone on the slightly rickety bamboo deck of a tiny, unnamed local cafe halfway up the steep, sweaty jumble trail to Viewpoint 2.
You are drinking a perfectly iced lime soda.
Because of the sheer altitude you've climbed, the chaotic, overwhelming noise of Tonsai village below is completely muted.
The twin bays are glowing this incredible deep blue under the midday sun.
And for that one singular moment, after a brutal 20-minute stair climb where your lungs are burning, the island finally feels as massive, quiet, and untamed as it was always supposed to be.
You just have to work incredibly hard for it.
Which brings us to a highly analytical conclusion. Segment 6. The budgets, the verdicts, and the alternatives.
Because after absorbing all this detailed information about the friction and the costs, you have to decide what kind of traveler you are and if Phi Phi is actually functionally meant for you.
The transcript rigorously breaks down 3 distinct daily budgets to show what your money actually buys.
Let's go through them because this really grounds the conversation in reality.
Budget 1. The Survivalist. This requires 1,500 baht, or roughly $43 a day. What does that actually look like?
This means you are walking absolutely everywhere in the brutal heat because you can't afford water taxis.
You are sleeping in a cramped 16-bed dorm room where the management only turns the air conditioning on at night to save money.
You are eating exclusively from the cheap inland street carts, and your nightlife consists of drinking 7-Eleven beer sitting on the sand instead of in a bar.
And crucially, on this budget, you are completely priced out of any boat tours or island hopping.
You cannot afford to see Maya Bay. You are basically just physically existing on the island, sweating and surviving.
Then there's the second tier, the Comfort Traveler. This requires a significant jump to 4,500 baht, or $130 a day.
This budget fundamentally changes your experience. It gets you a private, relatively quiet wooden bungalow on Long Beach with breakfast included.
You can afford a 150 baht water taxi to town when you are too tired to hike through the jungle.
But the most crucial spend in this tier is a 2,500 baht private morning longtail boat charter, which allows you to see the outer lagoons on your own schedule, avoiding the massive group boats.
And if you are smart and socialized, you can split that boat cost with another couple from your hotel, cutting your major activity expense entirely in half.
Finally, we have the splurger. To do this, you need 15,000 plus baht, over $430 a day at minimum.
You are sleeping at the ultra-luxury Zevela Resort up north. You are eating imported Australian steaks at a beachfront table.
You are bypassing the longtail boats entirely and chartering an 8,000 baht private luxury speedboat to whisk you away to Bamboo Island.
But here is the critical verdict from Phil and H. The splurger premium on Phi Phi is fundamentally not justified by the environment.
You are paying Maldives-level luxury prices for a standard Thai island experience that is still ultimately choked by heavy commercial boat traffic and pollution in the water.
So if that economic math simply doesn't make sense to you, or the chaotic vibe we've described just doesn't match what you want out of a vacation, the transcript offers two very direct, far superior alternatives within Thailand that solve these problems.
I love when people offer actual solutions. First alternative, Koh Lanta.
If you want that beautiful classic Thai island experience, but with a much more laid-back, mature vibe, without the aggressive bucket-drinking party scene, go to Lenta.
It is just a 2-hour ferry right away. The prices across the board are literally halved compared to Phi Phi.
A very nice, spacious beachfront bungalow is only 2,000 baht. You can rent a scooter for 250 baht a day because they actually have a functional road network, which gives you total freedom to explore miles of empty coastlines without relying on a boat mafia.
A massive, fresh seafood dinner is 500 baht with absolutely zero-weight extortion scams. It is deeply authentic, incredibly welcoming, and financially fair.
The second alternative they propose is Koh Lipi.
If you strictly want that pedestrian-only, car-free charm that Phi Phi has, but you demand vastly superior snorkeling directly off the beach without the crowds, Leap is the definitive answer.
It is located much further south, right near the Malaysian border, which naturally filters out a lot of the casual tourists.
A genuine luxury room there is around 5,000 baht, which is far, far cheaper than the resorts at Lamtong.
The sand is incredibly fine, like powdered sugar. The coral reefs are actually living, vibrant, and full of life rather than dead and broken.
And the demographic crowd is calmer and slightly older. It simply outclasses Phi Phi's main beaches in almost every conceivable metric.
Okay, it is time for the final, definitive, is it worth it? Verdicts for every specific type of traveler heading to Southeast Asia in 2026.
If you are a survivalist or a deep budget backpacker.
The verdict is a resounding no. The cheap, basic infrastructure that supported that lifestyle has been systematically eradicated.
Fighting for a single inch of sand while avoiding raw sewage in the alleys, all while trying to survive on a $43 a day budget, is just a deeply miserable way to spend your precious vacation time.
Go to Koh Lanta instead, where your dollar still means something.
If you are a comfort or mid-range traveler,
The verdict is a very cautious maybe. It only works financially and experientially if you are willing to spend the money to stay on Long Beach, to physically escape the central chaos, and if you possess the discipline to strictly commit to the 3.15 p.m. Maya Bay hack to avoid the soul-crushing crowds.
if you don't follow the specific rules, the logistical friction will absolutely outweigh the fun.
What if you are a luxury traveler with an unlimited budget?
Surprisingly, the verdict is yes.
If you have the massive capital required to drop 15,000 baht a day without blinking, you can effectively buy your way out of all the island's logistical failures.
Waking up in a stunning private teak villa on Lamtong with the Andaman Sea at your absolute doorstep, completely insulated from the masses and the noise, is a genuinely spectacular, world-class experience.
However, if you are a family traveling with young children,
The verdict is a hard, uncompromising no.
the absolute lack of safe paved sidewalks, the aggressive constant flow of heavy metal delivery carts pushed by running workers, the severe lack of accessible emergency medical care.
And the sheer physical necessity of dragging exhausted kids in and out of unstable, rocking longtail boats multiple times a day is profoundly exhausting and genuinely dangerous.
And finally, what about digital nomads or long-term solo travelers looking for a base?
The verdict is generally no, largely due to the rolling daily power blackouts, the terrible spotty internet everywhere outside the immediate center.
And the incredibly high costs of basic food that completely ruin the famous geographic financial arbitrage of living in Thailand.
Unless, and this is a big, unless you decide to base yourself deep inland, accept the basic conditions, and plug yourself directly into the local expat dive master community.
That community is incredibly tight-knit and knows exactly how to bypass every single tourist trap on the island.
So what does this all mean?
To synthesize this incredible deep dive, Phi Phi in 2026 is a masterclass in extreme, hyper-capitalist travel economics.
It is a place where every single moment of isolation, every quiet view, or every bit of convenience has a steep, highly calculated price tag attached to it.
And absolute ignorance of the local logistics will, without a doubt, ruin your trip.
It is a sobering reality to confront. And it leaves us with a final, much broader question to consider, something not explicitly answered in the transcript, but deeply implied by every single mechanism we've discussed today.
If a beautiful destination systematically engineers itself to extract maximum revenue from short-term transient tourists,
If it physically hides its burning garbage in the jungle to maintain a facade, and aggressively prices out the very locals and budget backpackers who originally gave the island its vibrant soul and its culture,
does it eventually lose the very authenticity that those luxury tourists are paying so much money to see?
and what does this economic trajectory mean for the future life cycle of every other undiscovered paradise on Earth?
Will they all eventually become nothing more than logistical smokescreens?
That is a phenomenal, slightly terrifying question to chew on as we look at the future of global travel.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning those glossy travel brochures, stay deeply curious about the economics of where you go, and always keep looking for the reality behind the algorithm. We will catch you on the next one.